Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a book review. Though I usually post my reviews on Instagram and Goodreads, today is the first time that I'm going to upload a review over the YouTube. As you can see, the book that I have here is The Great Gatsby, written by F.Scott Fitzgerald. F stands for Francis with an E. As I said before, that it's my first ever book review on YouTube, so just have patience with me. First of all, I'll be telling you guys something about the author and how his life is connected to this novel in particular, and that is one thing that fascinates me, and that is one thing that I really like about a work, any literary work, where you can see the glimpses of writer's life, his personal life and everything. So the first thing that you need to know is that it's an American novel and it represents the 1920s of America and the society and everything. It is basically a love story, a mystery, and you can call it a social document of that time. This whole novel revolves around the idea of American dream. So if you're a student of literature, you would be aware of the term and what it actually means. You can say that it's the central most idea that's present in this book. This novel is about the impossibility of recapturing the past and altering the future and all. The plot of this novel is like parallel to Scott's life in many ways, like in the lost love, his financial crisis, his experiences in the army, his broken engagement with his wife Zelda, and reconciliation or union with her. So first let me tell you about his life and how we can see the glimpses of his personal life in this novel. Fitzgerald was a poor man and he was in army, and there he fell in love with a woman named Zelda. She was so pretty, but she rejected him. At that point of his life, he was writing his first novel, This Side of the Paradise, and the publishers rejected that novel, so he faced two rejections at the same time. He kept on improving his writings and his work, and finally after some period of time, his work was accepted by the publishers and they were ready to publish it, and that was the time when Zelda accepted him as a husband and they were married afterwards. After a few years of their marriage, Zelda got involved with some other man and she asked for a divorce, and he was heartbroken at that point of time, and this whole section of his life can be seen in this book, The Great Gatsby. The protagonist, or the main character that we have in this novel is actually the representation of himself. And through this character, he portrayed his feelings and emotion in a really beautiful way. This novel actually shows his desperate yearning for his younger days of life when everything was so carefree and everything was beautiful and perfect and good. As I said before, Jay Gatsby is kind of a representation of Francis Scott Fitzgerald, and Daisy, the woman in this novel, is a representation of Zelda, his wife. And this novel is narrated by Nick Carraway, who is the cousin of Daisy and a neighbor of Jay Gatsby. So let me give you a glimpse into what happens in this novel. Back in the day when Jay Gatsby and Daisy both are young, they fall in love with each other, but there is class difference between both of them. She belongs to a very wealthy family, whereas Jay Gatsby, he is a poor young man having nothing in his pockets. Short after them falling in love, he has to be sent overseas to fight in the war and all that, and that is how they are separated. What happens next, that Daisy move on with her life, and after years she marry another rich man with the name Tom Buchannan. They live happily for years and even give birth to a beautiful daughter. After 5 years, Daisy and Jay Gatsby, they meet each other and they develop an affair which ends tragically. I am not going to spoil the story for you guys, it's just the beginning, and I needed this part to show you guys how his life was related to the story and the plot in this book. When Scott in his real life meets Zelda, he is in an army and he has to go to France to fight in the war. And same happens in this book when Jay Gatsby is in army and he meets Daisy and falls in love with her, and then he has to go overseas to fight in the war. Like, it's the same exact thing that's happening in real life. Scott was poor and he had nothing to wear, I mean no luxurious life and nothing else. Same happens in the book when Jay Gatsby is poor and he has nothing else to wear except for his uniform, so it's kind of a shield for him. The second thing that you need to know is जब फ्रांसिस के नॉवेल्स पब्लिश होने लगते हैं तो जेल्डा उसे एक्सेप्ट कर लेती है दोबारा, एंड सेम चीज़ हम लोग देख सकते हैं इस नॉवल में when Daisy and Jay Gatsby they are reunited and they develop an affair, क्योंकि Jay Gatsby he is no longer poor but he is a really wealthy man. That's the second similarity that we have in here. The third similarity that we have is जब आफ्टर मैरिज जेल्डा फ्रांसिस से डाइवोर्स लेती है, ठीक है, तो दैट शोज सेपरेशन, द सेकेंड सेपरेशन ऑफ डेजी एंड जे इन द नॉवल. जब आफ्टर मीटिंग अप for years and years they separate and she goes back to his husband Tom Buchanan. So this is how he has represented himself and his story in the plot of this novel, which is like fascinating and which is like really good. And इसके अलावा उसने अपने emotions and feelings को through dialogues and words जो है वो portray किया है. इसके अलावा as I told you guys before that he had this yearning for the past time and the good old days. Same can be seen in this novel, and there are specific passages where it is so apparent. Let me recite it to you guys. I'm going to fix everything just the way it was before. She'll see. He talked a lot about the past, and I gathered that he wanted to recover something, some idea of himself perhaps that had gone into loving Daisy. His life had been confused and disordered since then, but if he could once return to a certain starting place and go over it all slowly, he could find out what that thing was. The next thing that I want to mention in this book is that as students of literature, we need to find and recognize the antagonist and the protagonist. So in this novel, the class difference, the time, and Tom Buchanan, they play the role of antagonist, while Jay Gatsby, he is the protagonist of this novel. The next thing that I want to say is that symbolism is used in this novel in the best possible way, and everything, every word and every object that you see in here, the light, the cars, the banners, the land and everything, it signifies something and it gives meaning to the whole work. For instance, the name Daisy symbolizes a flower that has white petals and golden center. In the world of literature, white often symbolizes innocence and purity and all that, which shows the exterior of Daisy, that she looks innocent and beautiful and pure, while the yellow color in the center of the flower represents corruption and all that. So it shows कि वो अंदर से कैसी है and वो बाहर से कैसी है. Just with the help of one word, Francis has described the whole character of Daisy. While in case of Jay Gatsby, nothing is described about him except for his smile and his neck and expressions, and the rest of the things that we get to know about his personality is through his dialogues with the other characters in the story and the words that are said about him and his own words. I want to share with you guys another beautiful passage from the novel where the author described Gatsby's smile. I love this passage in particular because it is so beautifully written and it is simply epic. He smiled understandingly, much more than understandingly. It was one of those rare smiles with a quality of eternal reassurance in it that you may come across 4 or 5 times in life. It faced or seemed to face the whole external world for an instant and then concentrated on you with an irresistible prejudice in your favor. It understood you just so far as you wanted to be understood, believed in you as you would like to be believed in yourself, and assured you that it had precisely the impression of you that, at your best, you hoped to convey. It's simply beautiful, and the main idea that this whole novel revolves around is American dream, American dream in which money is happiness, wealth is happiness, and nothing else matter. Here you have to work day and night, and it's kind of a never-ending race that you have to be a part of in this world. And this novel shows how even achieving the American dream cannot satisfy you and your soul, and you don't feel that happiness that you were working for all your life and all these years. Because in the end, even Jay Gatsby, he has all the wealth in the world, but he could not have Daisy. He could not marry the one girl that he fell in love with. So like, it's for nothing. Wealth can give you nothing. The American dream and all this, it's like crap. As I said before, this book is full of symbolism, and everything and every object in this book symbolize something else. Let me give you an example. The author has fictionalized two villages. One is the East Egg, one is the West Egg. In East Egg, we have Tom Buchanan and Daisy Buchanan. They live there, and the East Egg actually symbolizes the old rich. By old rich, I mean the people who are born rich and are wealthy and are considered classy. The West Egg is occupied by Jay Gatsby, and he has this huge mansion over there. And the West Egg in general symbolizes the new rich, which means someone who is not born rich, but उसने hard work करके या कुछ भी करके जो है पैसे कमाए हैं, and he's now a rich person. So that is the difference that we have on these two sides. Besides, the cards that we have in this novel, they portray the vanity, the exposure, and the fake show off to people, right? So I guess that's pretty much everything that I have to say about this novel right now. There are a few other passages that I want to share with you guys because I found them really beautiful and moving. The one that I've highlighted, it's when Daisy gave birth to a baby girl and she wake up. I woke up out of the ether with an utterly abandoned feeling and asked the nurse right away if it was a boy or a girl. She told me it was a girl, and so I turned my head away and wept. All right, I said, I'm glad it's a girl, and I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world, a beautiful little fool. इसके अलावा I want to share another line from this book that I really loved. I don't know why, maybe because I am a hopeless romantic, or I have this romantic soul in me, or whatever. The officer looked at Daisy while she was speaking in a way that every young girl wants to be looked at sometime. Okay, I love that. So if you want to read this novel, just go for it. It's very short, like it has 150 something pages. And if you don't want to read this novel, at least go for its movie. The movie is fantabulous. The imagination and effort that's been put into it is like amazing. It is such a nice movie, and also because of the fact that Leonardo is playing the main role of Jay Gatsby, and I watched it like twice. I have this personal habit that I watch a movie before reading its novel because it helps me not troubling about the imagination, right? So I already have the character and the scenario and all of that in my mind, and I don't have to think over it again and again. So it's my personal habit. औरों को ये पसंद नहीं होगा, but just suit yourself, do whatever you like, read it first and then watch the movie, or watch the movie and then read it. It doesn't make any difference to me. So if you have plenty of time or some free time, go for this book because it's gonna take 4 to 5 hours in total, right? And that's all for today's review. I have nothing else to say about it, I guess. And iske baad, the second book that I'm about to start reading today is George Orwell's 1984. I hope to finish it by in this 1 week, and I will post its review soon. So stay tuned for that. Guys, I am open to criticism and suggestions, so let me know in the comment section as to how can I make my reviews even more better. Apart from that, go to the description box and I would have written in words the review that I have posted on Instagram on my blog. So see you in the next video, and until then, take care of yourself and Allah Hafiz.